Tonight, the throne speech promises more new laws for Saskatchewan, from bumping up the smoking age to protecting poppies in the workplace. Also, 82-year-old Peter Nygaard testifies for the first time at his sexual assault trial in Toronto. Plus, a physical way to process her grief, why a 76-year-old Kokum says she's stronger than ever before.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Wednesday, October 25th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. The Saskatchewan government promised to build and protect the province in today's throne speech. The government laid out its agenda for the next few months, including home rebates and some new laws. Adam Hunter explains.
His Honour, the Honourable Russ Morasti, Lieutenant Governor of Saskatchewan, and Her Honour, Donna Morasti.
Lieutenant Governor Russ Morasti delivered the speech as is the custom. Much of it was about the government commitments previously announced in areas like healthcare and addictions, but some was new, including reinstating a PST rebate for new home construction and incentives to add secondary suites to existing homes.
This is designed to address that pressure of not just first-time home ownership, but home ownership in general in the province, and to bring more homes ultimately onto the market. After
years of lobbying by the Canadian Cancer Society, the provincial government will raise the legal age for smoking and vaping from 18 to 19.
These are the steps that have been recommended by not only the Cancer Society, but I would say a number of youth that have visited the building as well and engaged with not only our health ministers, but other MLAs as well.
Mo says his government heard concerns from people who were told they could not wear a poppy in the workplace. In the next few weeks, he says the government will pass a law making that illegal.
Wearing a poppy and having a right to wear a poppy in your place of work or anywhere where you choose in this province, most certainly, I would say, is significant.
For firefighters with cancer, the province is amending the Workers' Compensation Act, expanding presumptive coverage from 16 types of cancer to 22. The province says it's the broadest coverage of any place in Canada. The speech failed to mention the government's new parental rights legislation passed last week after emergency session of the legislature and its use of the notwithstanding clause. Mo says it wasn't included because the issue has been dealt with. Opposition leader Carla Beck says the government is missing the real emergency.
What we saw here, I don't think is certainly doesn't meet the hype that the Premier suggested ahead of this throne speech, and I don't see anything here, and I'm even trying to be charitable, but nothing that's going to address those cost of living issues that so many people are struggling with across the province.
Beck was joined after the speech by family members of Regina seniors who recently found out their residence will be closed. They say the speech did not address their concerns, and they say they're being ignored. Adam Hunter, CBC News, Regina.
Mo's government has been focused on parental rights for the past 2 months. First, introducing a pronoun policy, then a new law. Now, the government has rescinded the policy. But to be clear, that has no impact on the bill that was passed last Friday. The pronoun policy introduced in late August is the subject of a constitutional challenge. But the government's new law trumps that policy, so it's been rescinded. So what does that mean for the legal challenge? Egal Canada is the co-legal counsel on the case.
So what's going to happen next, what we indicated in court yesterday, is that our legal fight certainly is far from over. We will be continuing with our litigation. The details of our specific legal arguments will come in the coming weeks, but we are not done. We still believe that what they have passed into legislation is constitutionally problematic and that it violates the constitutional rights of gender diverse students in the province. And we will do everything we can to make that argument before the courts.
Justice Michael McGaugh at Regina's Court of King's Bench said they'll reconvene December 1st. It's expected the government's counsel will try to get the case thrown out. Before the throne speech, a rally was held across Wascana Lake in response to the province's nursing shortage. Solidarity! A large crowd bundled up against the cold to demand better working conditions. It comes after the Saskatchewan Union of Nurses surveyed about 1,600 of its members on the state of the province's healthcare system. Many said a shortage of nurses is deteriorating working conditions and the quality of care.
So we have people coming into emergency rooms that cannot get the care they require. And then it pushes up into the system, into the wards where people are being discharged far too early. They're going out into home care where there isn't enough preparation there. People with chronic illness that's become acute. And now we're back into the circle where people end up back in the emergency room, extremely ill. There isn't enough beds. There aren't enough people to care for them. And around and around and around we go. And we are done going around and around.
Sun continues to call for a nursing task force. It would see the union, regulatory bodies and educational institutions come together with the government to find solutions to the workforce shortage. Training and recruiting more healthcare workers was mentioned in the throne speech, but some groups are taking matters into their own hands. Today, the Gabriel Dumont Institute in Saskatoon signed a 5-year agreement with Employment and Social Development Canada. It's called Nurturing Our Future, Building Métis Public Health Services Project. The money will expand health-related training programming to support Métis capacity in high-demand healthcare jobs. Métis Nation Saskatchewan is also part of the initiative. It will provide Métis students with additional sponsorship and employment opportunities in the health sector.
This is a real opportunity as we move forward to have our citizens take their rightful place within society, get an education, get into the working field, but also fill a very important piece that's missing. There's a gap within the health system, and this is a real opportunity for us to take that, space and fill up that gap.
The goal is to train approximately 600 Métis people in healthcare programs over the next 5 years. The federal government is providing $14.6 million. Saskatchewan has a severe shortage of doctors trained to treat liver disease. The Canadian military is also short of combat medical specialists. One Saskatoon man is trying to help out on both fronts. Jason Warwick explains.
If I were to use one word, I just feel so helpless. I wish I could do more.
At any given moment, specialist Dr. Nabil Samad is treating dozens of patients who are waiting for or recovering from a liver transplant. He's one of only 3 hepatologists in Saskatchewan. In comparison, there are 9 in Manitoba and 25 in Alberta. Samad says he works more than 70 hours some weeks, but there's often no one else available to see these patients.
These patients, if they're not getting seen by a hepatologist, they're not getting proper care. And if they're not getting proper care, unfortunately, the mortality as well as morbidity is very, very high.
One of those patients is Saskatoon's Chad Hartle. He's in Edmonton recovering from a successful liver transplant. Hartle says he wouldn't be alive without Dr. Samad.
He's been very integral into me getting a transplant. He's been nothing but great. I can't say enough about the man.
But Samad is also a major in the Canadian military, training other doctors in highly specialized trauma care. He's away frequently at military bases, teaching other doctors how to operate in helicopters or in other unusual situations.
That work is extremely crucial. It's extremely crucial for our commitment, for our defense forces.
Samad is a married father of 2 young children. He and his wife work hard to protect their family time.
I have got a very supportive family, and that is the key. And I make sure that I make time, I take time, and I find time for my family.
Samad says he feels like there aren't enough hours in the day, like he just can't get to everyone who needs his help. But for patients like Chad Hartle, they say Dr. Samad is already making a big difference. Jason Warwick, CBC News, Saskatoon.
A temporary homeless shelter in downtown Regina will continue to operate through the winter, according to the mayor. The 55-bed shelter is located at the Nest Health Centre in the old YMCA building. It opened in January of this year to fill the immediate shortage of shelter spaces in Regina, but it was slated to close at the end of September. Now, additional funding from the province will allow it to stay open until April. Mayor Sandra Masters says the City of Regina remains committed to finding a permanent shelter space with more beds.
The province has called upon both Saskatoon and Regina to look for additional space for those additional 30 spaces. So we'll continue the search, but the goal is, according to council, that by the end of this year we would understand where the permanent shelter space will be. But that goal will not interrupt the fact that we now have funding in place until the end of April 2024.
Homelessness has been a central issue for council, especially after a tent encampment was set up, then demolished in front of City Hall. People on the streets have told CBC News that even with temporary shelter, there are not enough beds for everyone who needs one. A worrying new report is out today from Food Banks Canada. Rising grocery prices have Canadians relying on them to survive like never before. Demand is at an all-time high with no relief in sight. Julia Wong has the key findings.
Food banks nationwide are seeing soaring demand from Canadians trying not to go hungry.
It is so hard to make that dollar stretch. And there's stuff I do have to go without. I don't want to, but I have to.
A new Food Banks Canada report finds in March there were nearly 2 million visits to food banks, the highest usage ever. That's a 32% jump from the same time last year and a whopping 79% increase from 2019. Food Banks Canada says many Canadians are having an increasingly hard time stretching their dollars to make ends meet.
Are they going to pay their rent this month or put food on the table for themselves and their families? And so these numbers really speak to the depth of suffering right across the country.
This food bank in PEI is even changing its hours for pickup to meet demand.
Just way too many people, coming to use the services, and that's really why we expanded our hours. We need to, get people in over a longer stretch of time, and hopefully we can serve them just a little bit better.
In Calgary, residents have taken it into their own hands and started a community fridge to help hungry neighbors.
The fridge has been really well used since we opened it up about a week ago. We try and fill it about 2 or 3 times a day. The need is really huge, and people are really feeling the burn of inflation these days.
There's concern over the growing pressure on food banks. The need is astronomical compared to 4 years ago, with Ontario seeing a 101% jump in demand, Quebec at 98%, and Alberta at 94%. There's worry food banks simply cannot keep up.
If we see these rates of growth year over year, there will be a point where food banks aren't able to respond. And that's scary to think of.
What Beardsley says is most important in dealing with this issue: government action. Putting more money in the wallets of vulnerable Canadians and creating more affordable housing. But it isn't clear whether that will happen fast enough for Canadians who are already struggling. Julia Wong, CBC News, Edmonton.
Well, a little bit easier to get around out there today. Seems like pedestrians and drivers have accepted, willingly or not, that the snow and ice is here for the season. The cold weather is continuing as we work our way through the week with highs quite a bit below average, but thankfully it's not going to be unbearable. Ethan will explain in his forecast after the break. Stay with us.
This weather update is brought to you by Titan Automotive, proud member of the Capital Automotive Group.
And our weather specialist, Ethan Williams, joins me now. Is it weird that I feel acclimatized already?
Yeah, it's like we're almost used to this.
Like we've lived here our whole lives or something?
Yeah, and this happens every year. Strange, isn't it? Yeah, certainly was a cold morning in portions of the province. Especially if you were out west. Yeah, we hit -20 this morning in Leader, which, by the way, has been our national hotspot a few times this month. Why not make it the cold spot in the province this morning at 9 a.m., I might add, feeling like -30 there almost with a bit of wind chill. It's the coldest low temperature on October 25th there in at least 30 years. And Kindersley-Rosetown getting pretty close as well, mid-minus teens from Saskatoon to Swift Current. Some of us did manage to get a little warmer this afternoon the further east you went, but these are still below seasonal conditions. But, if you're in that western section of the province, Leader, you're once again our cold spot now down into the minus double digits. Just how much below seasonal? Well, some 10 to 15 degrees if you're in Regina and eastern sections, and between 15 and 20 degrees below normal in especially southwestern and west central Saskatchewan. Add to that the snow, and yeah, it sort of does feel a little bit like winter, or a lot like winter. Snowfall warning is actually dropped off for the Weyburn-Estevan area, and that's because we are starting to see those bands diminish and the storm system move its way into Manitoba. Now, after that snow moves out, as we head kind of past midnight tonight in south and central, there is another band that will start moving in probably mid tomorrow afternoon to the far south, and heaviest bands late tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow evening in the southeast. But I think the heaviest of the snow going to be falling in Manitoba and the States. Some cloud cover and sporadic flurries for Thursday, and maybe a little bit of sunshine for Saturday. Not much more snow tonight with that next system moving in. You can see I've added a few U.S. locations here to show just how much more they'll be getting than we'll see in southeastern Saskatchewan, maybe another 5 centimeters or so. For Regina, though, we are in the clear pretty much here. Tomorrow, I think we are looking at maybe a little bit of some clearing, a mix of sun and cloud. Highs near -6. Those overnight lows the next few nights going to be down around the -10 mark into those minus double digits, as the daytime highs are kind of sitting around -5 or so. A little bit of increasing cloudiness for the back end of the weekend and into next week. Halloween, not the worst temperature there. We've had worse, -3 for a daytime high with a mix of sun and cloud. At least it looks like the snow will be staying away for the most part and maybe getting close to freezing as we head into Wednesday. Saskatoon, a little bit warmer for you folks for daytime highs, and should be getting some sunshine these next few days here. Flurries possible as well as we head into Sunday, Monday. Overnight lows generally, again, staying around the -10 or so, but a big fat pumpkin there, Sam, for Pumpkin Day on Tuesday.
Not the worst forecast ever, he says.
Right, the bar is low.
Really low. Thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
Yes, that is a pumpkin painted to look like Taylor Swift. Taylor Swiftkin weighs about 181 kilograms or 399 pounds. Her hair made from 9 wigs, her ears, sweet potatoes. And she even has a little football dedicated to her new boyfriend, football player Travis Kelce. The Ohio artist behind Taylor Swiftkin has been creating a celebrity pumpkin for 35 years. A breast cancer survivor, she uses the pumpkins to spread the word that October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. We'll be back after the break.
When it comes to your news, you want up-to-the-minute access. Anytime, anywhere. Get the facts straight from the source. Download the free CBC News app or visit cbcnews.ca for news you can trust.
A court in Toronto has started hearing testimony from Peter Nygaard. The one-time fashion company owner has been charged with 5 counts of sexual assault and 1 count of forcible confinement. Today, Nygaard's lawyer began questioning his client. Jamie Strachan has the details.
Peter Nygaard took to the stand in his own defense today. He spent most of his time recounting his life story, from poor immigrant to fashion mogul. The 82-year-old also told the court that in the last 4 years, his short-term memory has gotten worse and worse. "I recommend not getting old. It's not a good disease," he told the court. Late in the afternoon, Nygaard started to testify about his Toronto headquarters and his private bedroom where the alleged assaults took place. Criminal defense attorney George Gray has been following this case and says Nygaard's choice to testify in his own defense may be beneficial.
Putting myself in the shoes of the jury, I imagine that jury is very curious to know what the other side of the story is, and they might have a question about why an accused didn't testify if he or she didn't take the stand.
At the same time, Gray says it could backfire.
There might be aspects of that are difficult for him to explain, and he's there and he can't get away.
Before Nygaard took the stand, his attorney Brian Greenspan attempted to dismantle and discredit the Crown's case. He dismissed the Crown's attempt to portray Nygaard as a predator, a sexual megalomaniac who lured women to his Toronto headquarters. He told the jury that his client had no recollection of ever meeting 4 of the 5 complainants in this case. It's impossible to have a recollection of events that did not occur, Greenspan told the jury, calling the testimony of the 5 women inaccurate, unreliable, and not trustworthy. Over the last 3 weeks, court has heard testimony from 5 women who have detailed sordid, disturbing allegations against Nygaard. All of the women told the court similar stories of meeting Nygaard by chance, being contacted months later with the promise of help breaking into the fashion industry. The women testified all of the meetings ended at Nygaard's Toronto headquarters where they were allegedly raped. All of the alleged assaults took place between the late 80s and 2005. The youngest alleged victim was 16. None of the allegations have been proven, and Nygaard has pleaded not guilty. For decades, Nygaard helmed a sprawling fashion empire. The company declared bankruptcy in 2020 as allegations against Nygaard began to swirl. Nygaard is expected to be on the stand for at least 2 days. Jamie Strachan, CBC News, Toronto.
And Ethan is back with one last look at your weather.
And it's not entirely all that warm for a lot of us. Again, sitting at -13 by 8 a.m. in Regina. A bit of wind, going to make it feel closer to the -20 mark. We'll see a little bit of clearing by the noon hour, I think, as that temperature warms to -6. I use the term warm loosely here, but the clouds likely building back in a little bit by the afternoon in Regina, I think. For Saskatoon, we're looking for a temperature at 8 a.m. of -10, feeling like -15. You may just see a mainly sunny day through the day tomorrow. Temperatures so cold, it's scary. And Susan McDonald says this guy needed a few more layers in Regina. And talking about bone-chilling cold, Sam, this just might be it.
But you know what? Some people willingly put themselves in ice baths. Maybe that's what this guy was doing.
He's just training for Tuesday.
Training for Halloween.
Yes.
Thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
And before we leave you tonight, a story of resilience. A 76-year-old grandmother from George Gordon First Nation makes the 1-hour drive into Regina 3 times a week to take kettlebell kickboxing classes. Iva Geddes McNabb was struggling after losing 3 family members in 1 year. But now she says she's stronger than ever.
Ready? You're going right into it.
When I come to kettlebell kickboxing, I have this energy and it just calms everything down. I can pray, I can just enjoy myself when I'm here.
Ready? All the way up, all the way down.
And I've been like grieving since 2016. I lost my husband and my grandson and my son. And this has brought balance to my life. So that's the reason I can't quit now. I know where my happiness is. And the things that I can do now, like it's unbelievable, especially with my age. I turned 76 on the 9th of October. And like I feel good, I don't feel my age. It's a big part of my life. This exercise, it keeps me healthy. I've had osteoarthritis, I've had high blood pressure, diabetes. Since I started this, I don't have them anymore. I'm not on any kind of medication. So like I encourage all the older people, and especially the young ones, when I'm with my grandkids, they see that Kokum is strong. And I think they're very proud of me to see me the way I am now. I mean, they were proud of me before, but now more than ever, because like I'm their protector. And I know, like, I don't care how old I am. They say, my grandma will get you, especially the young grandchildren. Get my grandma after you. When they sang happy birthday to me here on the 11th, I told them I was still going to be here when I'm 90. That's my goal.
What a great story to end on tonight. That is it for us tonight. For news anytime, head to our website, our YouTube channel, or download the CBC News app. Ethan and I are back with more tonight at 11. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.